Hello, we're the Tea Gardens. I'm Ann.
And I'm Grant with Synergia Marriage Mentoring. When Ann and I first married, I was doing engineering work in the U.S. Navy, and Ann started her first job teaching, fourth grade at a school. She was excited to put her degree to work.
It was my first year of teaching, and I threw myself into it wholeheartedly. There was so much to do, figuring out curriculum, daily lesson plans, grading papers, school meetings, parent meetings, etc., etc. I was loving it, but it was also overwhelming, and I think I was stressed out most of the time.
Yep. And what used to be evenings of fun activities for the two of us before she started her work, well, that became work sessions for her, and I found myself trying to help, but there wasn't a lot I could do. Maybe grade a few papers for her, try to do more around the apartment, and be understanding. I knew the first year of teaching was going to be tough. It's tough for everyone.
I was really relieved when the first school year was over and I had the summer to breathe.
And that was when I realized that, wow, I had my wife back again. Here was the woman I married, fun-loving, attentive, more relaxed. And I realized I'd missed her during the school year. School teacher Ann was a very different person. And I began to think, well, what happens when school starts back up? I don't want to lose the woman I married. So during the next school year, we reached out to get some counsel, and we figured things out a fair amount.
We experienced what a lot of married folks experience. So we've titled this video, What Happened to the Person I Married? Because when we start to run into a significant rough patch, particularly after being happily married for a number of years, our thinking can start us down the path of, what is up with them? Why aren't they treating me the way they used to? This is not the person I married. Well, if you've been married for a number of years, at least that last part is true. This is not the same person that you married. But I don't mean that in a negative way. We'll come back to that in a few minutes.
Yes. We're going to briefly discuss 4 areas that can cause a good, healthy marriage to take a turn for the worse. We go into more detail of each of these areas in other videos. But as we discuss them, you can consider which of these might be players in your current relationship.
One area that can cause the marriage relationship to take a turn for the worse is busyness and stress, like in our example. Busyness distracts us from what matters most in life, like spending fun, quality time with your spouse. When we're living through a season of busyness, our closeness really takes a hit. Now, when you add life stress into that mix, our interactions degrade even more. We respond curtly, we communicate poorly, and it really makes things worse. It's like trying to communicate when you're hangry, and it doesn't usually go well.
That's right. There are a lot of things that can keep us busy, like kids' activities and a lot of things that elicit stress in our lives, like work activities. And most of us, we don't realize how high our stress levels really are. Many of us are living with chronic stress, and our bodies weren't built for that. And most of the things that you're stressed about, they don't really matter that much. And you won't remember most of them 1 year from now, not the details anyways.
That's right. So here's a quick quiz to assess if busyness and stress have taken over your lives, okay? Has it been more than 2 months since you had a date with your spouse? And going to Home Depot doesn't count. If you don't remember when you had your last date, yeah, that's not a good sign.
All right. Has it been more than 1 year since you had a relaxing vacation? All right. We're talking minimal work here occurring on the vacation.
When you wake up in the morning, do you still feel tired, even exhausted? Definitely a bad sign.
And is your mind stuck in the future, like on your tasks for the day when you wake up? Do you feel, does your family tell you that, hey, you're not really present with us? Dad, we just answered that question 2 hours ago.
Do you have relaxed family meals together less than 3 times per week?
Busyness and stress they're running rampant in a lot of families. And so if this is you, if you're answering yes to those questions, it's probably time for a reset. You need to reestablish some priorities, some new priorities with your marriage relationship right near the top.
Another very common area that can cause a turn for the worse is unresolved hurt. If either you or your spouse has unresolved hurt, it's going to impact your marriage relationship. When there's unresolved hurt in a marriage, our human tendency is to pull back. We will share less, we'll be less vulnerable, and we'll be less sympathetic and empathetic. It's tough for me to empathize with something that Grant is going through if I'm mad at him over something that he said or did to me, and I'm certainly not going to feel lovey-dovey. This is why it's important to keep short accounts when it comes to resolving hurts.
Yeah, that's right. Unresolved hurts are like an infection in your relationship, and they're contagious. They fester, create painful areas. And when our spouse then accidentally touches one of those areas, our response comes from pain, not from love. And it could create a whole new cycle of hurt. Just vicious.
The unsuspecting spouse usually doesn't realize the reason for our harsh response because they don't see the hurt. So the harsh words and disrespectful deeds spread hurt to anyone who is around us. That's why unresolved hurt, even in other relationships like our family of origin or past relationships, can cause problems in our marriage still today. The spouse bumps an old wound and triggers a huge response. So know this, when we have unresolved hurt in our life, it overflows to whoever is near us, and our spouse is often that person.
So the question to consider is, do I have some significant unresolved hurt in my life? And if you're consistently irritated with your spouse, that's a red flag that you most likely do. You may be thinking, well, hey, I thought this video was about my spouse. Well, change always starts with us. So first assess your own heart, and after you've done that, then reflect on whether you think your spouse has some resolved hurt on their side. In all likelihood, you both do. And now you'll need to start working through some forgiveness all around.
The next most likely cause is that one or both of you has a fear that's awakening or a dream that's being threatened, but you're not seeing it at that level. If I were to ask you what couples usually argue about the most, you'd probably say money, and that's right. But what couples don't realize is they're not really arguing about the money. It's about what the money represents, especially in the way of a dream or a fear.
Yes. Like when your spouse spends $200 and maybe you didn't discuss it in advance and you find that it's really bothering you, it's likely because that spending is infringing on a dream you have, like, oh, I wanted to buy a boat in the spring. Or it's raising a fear you have, like not having enough savings in case one of you loses your job. The issue might be, in the way of dreams and fears, that they're not crystal clear in your own mind, and so we're not communicating them to our spouse.
Right.
You may have been thinking, well, gosh, they're doing this reorganization at work, and some folks are going to lose their job. What if it's me? Well, you didn't want your spouse to be stressed out, so you're maybe not saying too much to them, but the stress is causing, marital stress, because you're watching money like a hawk, and your spouse doesn't know why.
Yeah, and even these examples are sort of a top layer example. Many times you have to dig deeper by asking a series of questions. Why is this so important to you? What emotions is this stirring in you? Rather than getting defensive when our spouse is upset, it's time to put on the detective hat. Something inside them is being stirred and triggered. So if you're finding that your rough patch is involving a lot more arguing than in the past, it's time to look for some awakening fears or threatened dreams. We'll go more into how to resolve this in another video on this topic.
The last potential area we want to share with you to consider is that life change for one or both of you may be happening. And when we go through some life changes, the relationship, it requires recalibration because it's a good chance the changes will be long lasting. Examples of life change includes a major job change that can impact family finances, schedule, outside stresses. Another is birth or adoption of a child, when the child starts school, the teenage years, when a child graduates, especially if it's your last one and now you have an empty nest. You may be waking up to the fact that your marriage relationship has taken a back seat to other family dynamics for a lot of years.
Another life change is simply getting older, which can include caring for aging parents, major health challenges, and the changes associated with menopause. Our biochemistry changes as we age. For guys, the sex drive generally goes down some with age, while for women, it can actually go up.
That's right. And that's why we mentioned at the beginning of the video that the person you're married to now is not the same one you married years ago. They have changed, and so have you. Sometimes those seasons of change come on us quickly, other times they slowly sneak up on us. But all the changes represent an opportunity to reset the relationship for the better.
So what happened to the person you married? Well, they might have accumulated some hurt, and the two of you need to resolve it. Forgiveness is the key, and busyness and stress may be big contributors. One or both of you may have lost perspective. If so, it's time to reset your priorities.
Your spouse may be experiencing an awakening fear or a threatened dream, and you'll need to dig down deeper to discover these. And finally, you both may be walking through some significant life change, and this is the opportunity to come together and tackle it as a team.
So if some of these areas seem to hit home, you may want to check out some of the other videos in our 110 series. They'll dive into these more, and if you're finding these videos helpful, please like, share, and subscribe so that others can benefit as well.
So blessings on your day, and remember, this may be just the opportunity you need to put your marriage on the path to becoming awesome.